What do you cling to when the sky splits open and the ground beneath you feels like it might vanish? Not metaphorically, not spiritually, but literally, when there is war. Not headlines, but sirens. Not a distant region, but your neighborhood. Not theory, but blood. What does it mean to stay grounded when the world is on fire? The illusion of control. In the Discourses, Epictetus makes an observation so simple, it's easy to overlook. Some things are within our control, others are not. That line is not a comfort, it's a division, a battlefield map. Because when war breaks out, internally or externally, we're tempted to fight on every front, to argue with fate, to control the uncontrollable. We panic not just because the world is burning, but because we think it shouldn't be. We suffer twice, once from what happens and once more from our resistance to it. But the Stoic doesn't try to extinguish every flame. He builds a fireproof soul. He doesn't pray for peace. He prepares for the storm and keeps his peace anyway. The first insight is this: you cannot ground yourself in the world because the world is not grounded. But you can ground yourself in your principles, in your reason, in the one battlefield you still command, your mind. And yet, how do you do that when the fear is so real you can taste it in your throat? Fear and the discipline of perception. Fear is not always a lie. Sometimes it's the most honest thing in the room. But what matters is not that we fear. What matters is how we relate to that fear. Marcus Aurelius in the Meditations wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. War magnifies every sensation, every noise is louder, every uncertainty more unbearable. Our nervous systems scan for threats in every shadow. It's natural, evolutionary, but it's not always useful." Here's the Stoic reframe. Fear is a messenger, not a master. You can listen to it, but you do not bow to it. The Stoic trains himself daily before the war arrives. He imagines the loss of home, health, freedom, even life, not because he is morbid, but because he wants to be ready. To be free not from danger, but from illusion. And when the world erupts, he doesn't ask, "Why is this happening?" He asks instead, "What part of this is mine to master?" That shift, just that, can steady the hands that once trembled. But still, there is grief. Grief as proof of love. No philosophy worth living denies the weight of loss. When we mourn because something mattered. A friend, a child, a way of life. Seneca reminds us, "What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears." Grief is not weakness. It is the cost of connection. The Stoic does not suppress sorrow. He gives it structure. He feels fully, but he does not drown. Think of it this way. Grief is not a storm to resist. It is a tide to ride. Let it move through you. Let it speak. But do not let it anchor your soul in despair. Even in loss, you have agency. Even in sorrow, you can choose the manner of your response. There is a difference between being struck and staying down. But how do we rise when everything around us has fallen? The inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius described a place no enemy could enter. A man must stand erect, not be kept erect by others. He spoke of the inner citadel, a fortress inside yourself, built of character, not stone. No bomb can touch it, no regime can seize it. It is yours, entirely. To cultivate that citadel is the task of a lifetime, but especially in crisis. Each time you practice patience, each time you resist despair, each time you choose virtue over rage, you lay a brick in that inner stronghold, and when the world goes to war, you retreat not in cowardice, but in clarity. From this vantage point, you remember, you are not what happens to you. You are what you do with it. But action, in a time of collapse, how do we know what to do? Right action amidst chaos. When society fractures, clarity becomes a moral compass. The Stoics never said, "Do nothing." They said, "Do the right thing." In the chaos of war, that might mean protecting your family, rescuing a neighbor, resisting tyranny, calmly, wisely, without vengeance. Epictetus puts it bluntly, It is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. We don't control the war. We control our role in it. And more than that, we shape the legacy of this moment by the choices we make within it. Even when all choices are painful, there is still one that is more just, more honorable, more aligned with the soul of a free human being. Sometimes the smallest action, a word of kindness, an offer of bread, a refusal to hate, becomes a revolt against madness. But to act rightly, we must first see rightly, and that requires stillness. Stillness in the eye of the storm. In the middle of battle, a warrior pauses, not to retreat, but to remember. Stillness is not the absence of motion. It is the presence of awareness. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality. When we act out of frenzy, we react. When we act from stillness, we respond." Stillness is the eye of the storm, not outside of chaos, but within it. It is breath. It is pause. It is the space between impulse and integrity. In moments of fear, return to the breath. Feel your body. Name your sensations. Then choose. This small act, so small it is invisible, may be the difference between wisdom and ruin. But where does one find that stillness when the world screams? Anchoring in timeless values. What survives every empire? What outlives every war? Not weapons, not borders, but values, courage, compassion, temperance, wisdom, justice. These are not luxuries. They are the last remaining compass when every map burns. The Stoic anchors in these values because they do not shift. They are not voted upon. They are not subject to inflation or invasion. When you hold fast to them, you become an example, not just a survivor. You radiate sanity in insane times, and people notice. You become the stone others cling to, even if your heart is breaking too. But the Stoic does not do this for applause. He does it because, what else is there? When everything else is taken, these remain. But to hold them, you must first let go of everything else. Letting go of the unessential. In wartime, reality becomes razor sharp. The trivial falls away. Ego crumbles. Possessions lose their meaning. What once seemed urgent, emails, likes, promotions, suddenly feels like noise. And what remains is the question, who am I without all of it? This is the final Stoic gift of crisis, the clarity of the essential. You see what truly matters. You are forced to release the illusions you once clung to. And in doing so, you become light. You become free. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." But this freedom is not without cost. It demands discipline, sacrifice, a willingness to live as though every day were your last, and every action your legacy. So, when the world is at war, how will you live? You may not be able to stop the war. You may not even be able to leave it, but you can meet it with eyes open, with virtue intact, with stillness at your center. You can remain grounded, not because the world is steady, but because you are. If this spoke to something deep in you, a longing for strength that doesn't shout and clarity that doesn't flee, then share this video with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more daily Stoic insights. And remember, even in war, the soul can choose peace. One breath, one act, one thought at a time. Stay grounded and stay human.